Alright, good afternoon. It's a beautiful day in Austin, Texas, and we are here to bake our whole grain flatbread. Let's go over our ingredients that we have and the preparations that I've done before this. Some of the preparations I'll show to you again, but we have down here, we have our biga, which we made yesterday, and so this has been sitting for 24 hours. It's 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of water. Just before Chef Kim got here, I mixed together boiling water, whole grain oats or whole oats, not quick oats but old-fashioned style. I got them in the bulk department. I have a tablespoon of molasses and a tablespoon of salt in here mixed so that they dissolve in the boiling water. The reason why you boil the water when you add it to the oats is so that the oats will fully absorb that water, and the boiling water opens up the starch, it gelatinizes it, makes it more receptive to the water in the dough. The more water we can get in the dough, the better, the more moist the bread will be in the end. And then for our flour here, we are using the King Arthur white whole wheat. White does not mean that this is white flour. White just means that the normally everyone bakes with hard red winter wheat. The red refers to the reddish color of the bran. This has a white appearance to it. Think of it as corn. You have blue corn, red corn, yellow corn, white corn, okay? Here we have a white wheat, so there's no reason why you can't have different colored wheats, although I haven't seen a red or a blue wheat or a red wheat yet. Well, no, excuse me, we have seen the red wheat. We haven't seen the blue wheat, certainly, or yellow wheat for that matter. And in my recipe, we actually go over, okay, why have we started to bake with the white wheats? Well, the white wheat, when the gene that determines the color also has something to do with the flavor. So a white wheat does not have the bitter flavor that all red winter wheats have. And what is the consequence of this bitter flavor is that almost every whole wheat bread that you see has got either honey in it or sugar, but has something in there to counter that sweetness. And I would contend that, and most of us who like to use this white winter wheat, this white wheat, is that you don't have to add sugar to this recipe. I've added a tablespoon of molasses just because I like a little bit of molasses flavor, but that is a very insignificant amount of sugar to add to the recipe. So, yesterday we mixed our pre-ferment, our biga. Now I've added 2 cups of water to this, and I added the remainder of my package of yeast to it. I took 1/3 of a teaspoon out before to add to the biga, and I've hydrated the yeast in the water and in the flour. We have to add an additional cup of water to this. Excuse me, an additional cup of flour. So there we go. We're going to add the pre-ferment, the biga. It's very stiff. It's nothing like the pouliche that we used in our last recipe that we posted, which is a focaccia. The biga is especially recommended for whole grain, where the strength is a little bit harder to develop. Let's look at something real quickly here before we do this. See if we can see any gluten development here. It might not show up without the salt having been added to the recipe. And yeah, you can see a few strands of gluten developed in this pre-ferment, but it'll be much more obvious when we actually get the recipe, when we get the dough finished and at the end of its rest period. Okay, so we got that there. We're going to add our oats. And scrape down my tools. This out of the way. Now we're going to do our mixing. It's nice to have a very stiff spatula to work with. as I talked about the last time, we want to work really in the bowl, keep all of the sticky flour, water, ingredients here in the bowl. Makes it easier to clean up afterwards, easier to handle while it's during the different processes, the rising process. Got to spread out, work the biga into the dough. And what I'm really doing is just imitating the way the mixer in a large-scale bakery would work, and that it picks it up and folds the dough over. And this is what you would be doing if you were actually kneading with your hands. But as you can see, this is much too sticky or tacky to handle with your hands. You'd have flour, or you'd have the dough all over your hands. You'd have to either keep them greased or add a lot of extra flour. And the consequence of that is that if you keep adding flour, okay, yeah, you can handle the bread more easily, but on the other hand, it's going to be very dry in the crumb afterwards, and you'll have lost a lot of the moisture, and dry bread just doesn't smell as good, it doesn't develop the aroma, doesn't taste it, it goes stale much more quickly. So the more water you can pack into a loaf of bread, the better off you are, the better the bread will taste. So I'm going to do this mixing for about 100 strokes. I haven't really been keeping count, but we'll wait till my arm gets tired, and that my arm's generally good for about 100 strokes.
We're at 76 right now.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
77, 78.
So 100 is kind of a magic number there, or
no, it's
average?
I don't think it needs. You could do more than that. If your arm will hold out, you can do 150, 200. But if you...
Oh, you can't overdo it?
Not when it's in this kind of wet and moist state. Your arm's going to give out before you overdo it. And okay. In an actual baker's bakery, there's your timer is set according to how many revolutions per minute or how many times the dough is going to be kneaded. And we all say that in more artisan loaves you want to undermix something, because when we go into the punch and fold or the stretch and fold later, we're adding that strength that normally you would do in a mixer, but we're doing other things at the same time. The long fermentation adds flavor. So there's nothing wrong with, you could actually add a little additional flour to this, and you could mix it a little bit longer, but I don't think it's going to be of great consequence, because we're going to have a 2-hour fermentation time for this. And that during that 2-hour fermentation, we'll see that the dough strengthens, that the gluten develops, and we'll be able to pull the dough apart and be able to actually show the strands or the sheets of gluten as they've developed. So I'm going to call this good at this point. We've got our 100 strokes in here, and scraped on the bowl. I'll leave my spatula in it. It's actually wetter than my last one. Don't know why, but we'll put that there, and then I'm just going to get a nice one of my trash bags and cover it up. We'll put it in a warm spot and let that develop for, I'm going to set my watch for a good hour. There.